Hi, I'm Tech Sergeant Sierra Ellis, and I'll be doing a leadership presentation. So the overview, eliminating record staging area, going from paper to electronic records, the team concept, leadership and management skills, and project management. So how did this project come about? So what happened is the Air Force actually sent down a tasker a long time ago, and they said, "Hey guys, according to the Paper Reduction Act, we wanted to make sure that the Air Force actually starts transitioning to electronic records. So if the records didn't have to be kept as paper, that we turn to electronic records. With that, we had the second largest staging area within the Air Force. And we also thought, hey, this is the chance for us to actually eliminate the staging area overall so that our comm squadron could actually get that space and benefit towards it. So our solution was to scan all the records that we had within the staging area and any long-term records, so mortuary type of records that you have to keep for 75 years or even longer, that would actually be sent to NARA, the National Archives Records Administration Center, and they would hold it. So now we'll talk about the team concept. First, we'll talk about the team roles. Creators, advancers, and executors played a big role. The creators were the ones who came up with the concept of where we should actually start the project. So we started with the long-term records because they thought it would make no sense to do short-term records because they would be eliminated and that would waste man hours. Advancers were the ones who helped with the problem solving. The executors were the ones who were very meticulous, and the reason why we made a binder of how to scan records. One thing that could have helped this team was maintaining good communication. So enhancing that team dynamic of making sure that everyone knew where you were in regards to where you left off on the project. We celebrated the team success. We were recognized by team with the team wing. We got a UEI award, and we also did an office offsite. So now we're going to talk about leadership and management skills of the project. And we're first going to start out with the DAC acronym, diagnosing, adapting, and communication. So we first had to diagnose what were the tools that the subordinates needed. So definitely one was the high-speed scanner, a shredder, and then making sure that we had the resources of airmen. So how many airmen would actually work back in the scanning room, which was one airman per week. And then we found out when it came to the adapting portion that the shredder was actually a bad idea. It just cost a lot of money to maintain. So then we actually got rid of that huge shredder, a waste of money, and we actually eventually ended up getting contracts with an outside shredding company. So they would come in and they would not only help us, but everyone around the base who actually needed to have their papers shredded. Then communication. Because this was a long timeline type of project, we had to make sure that we were getting constant feedback from our leadership. And if we ever needed anything, we had to get feedback to them just to tell them where we were. And also with the communication process, whenever new airmen came in, we had to make sure that we were communicating on what directions they needed to follow in order to scan. So we couldn't assume that they knew what to do by following the binder. We actually had to make sure someone knew how to be the proper trainer. So we got a trainer in place to help with that. So when it came to the management, the planning, budgeting, coordinating, and organizing. So the planning portion, we actually found out that it would be an awesome idea to create a process, a visual process binder. So we created that, and then for the budgeting purposes, we had the high-speed scanner, like I said. We had to go get with the RA, resource advisor, make sure our flight had the money to do that. And then coordinating, make sure everyone knew where their schedule fit, what week they were working, and organizing, making sure they were rotating efficiently. Because everyone was getting the kudos for this project, so it was important to make sure not just one person was doing a big gap of the work, which sometimes was hard to do. So the management skills that I think that definitely benefited this project was communication and analytical skills. So just making sure that if someone had done the scanning that week, that they had communicated with a person for the next upcoming week, just to say where they left off and make sure that their records were checked accordingly. Also analytical, making sure everything was in order, making sure that whatever boxes that they completed were organized and upkept. So now we're going to talk about the project management process. So first we'll go over the roles. The sponsor was the knowledge management section chief. The project manager was the base records manager. The project team leader was myself and another supervisor. The project team consisted of 10 airmen, and the stakeholders was everyone that was impacted by, which was the records managers for each squadron. Now we'll go into the second, which is project management process. First, the initiation. So I had talked about why this project even was needed. The Air Force had sent down the tasker for paper records to be turned into electronic records. With this, we also thought that we eliminate the record staging area overall. That was the entire project. So the biggest portion of this was the stakeholder analysis. Records managers for each individual squadron would be impacted because they would no longer have a facility for them to stage paper records. So we made sure that we included within our plan to train them properly on how to maintain electronic records and also how to scan in records, and if they had permanent or long-term records, how to ship those records to NARA and to get with us. With the planning portion, the goals, deliverables, and the schedule. So the goal was to basically get rid of the staging area and move paper records to electronic. The deliverables, what we had worked out with first was shipping those permanent records to NARA. So we had to make sure that each record was accounted for within the AFRMS, which is a record system, and there was a form called SF-135. And you had to make sure every one of this SF-135 was in each records box, identifying what records were in that box. And so we had to go individually, make sure they were correctly marked. After that, once we got all of the boxes, then we would go to LRS and actually ship them to NARA, so make sure that they were good to go. Also with the deliverables, we had to make sure that the long-term records were scanned in properly, and we had a deadline for that. And then we had the short-term records were scanned in properly, and we had a timeline for that. Every quarter we would meet up and just say where we were on this project, how we were doing with the timeline, if more airmen were needed. For the execution process, everyone knew what to do. Everyone was pretty good. Like I said, it was just a monotonous type of project, so we just had to make sure that everything was being maintained correctly. For monitoring, so we did have to change our timeline just a little bit because due to other projects, this project had come to a halt due to the priority list of where it was at. We knew that the Air Force didn't care for our staging area to be eliminated right away, so we could put this on the back burner and work the more severe high priority projects. And completion. When it came to the hot wash of all this, it was really a successful project. We were one of the first bases that actually completed this project. We scanned in about 1.9 million pages. We saved the Air Force $340,000 annually because we didn't have to maintain that building any longer within our section. Also, we were one of the first in the Air Force to actually eliminate their staging area. So our plan for electronic records and eliminating the base staging area was actually adopted by 8 bases. So in conclusion, it was a very successful project. We had a good team dynamic, leadership and management skills, communication was one of the biggest ones, and then when it came to project management, we kind of pulled it all together, making sure that everyone did what they needed to do and executed and completed the project accordingly.